Now that we created our box stand-in, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use the dimensions that we created earlier to just create a sort of proxy bed. And like I said, this is the actual bed opened, or box rather, box bed proxy, that's opened out of our Unity file here. So as I continue to build my box bed, you'll see it update in this Unity window, which is a really cool feature. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip between the image of my Maya window and the image of my bed. So the first thing I want to do is start looking at some basic shapes. I'm not really worried about the dimensionality of it. I just want to kind of get these basic shapes within the window. So I've got two cylinders, or actually three cylinders rather, here that I can duplicate over here. I've got a box here, another box here, a box that's sort of edited here, another box that's smoothed out, and again a bigger box here. So I'm just going to build the generic shape. What I normally do is I build either from the ground up or the furthest object forward. So let's start just by creating these cylinder legs here. So I have a cylinder here, one that's in between these two, and then the third cylinder. So let's go ahead and assign a new material to our bed. I'm going to go ahead and just do a Lambert. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the transparency here. Now I know my front of my bed is over here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Create, Polygon Primitive, Cube. Now, like I said, I'm actually making a cylinder foot, but I like to create all of my cylinders and spheres out of cubes. So what I'm going to do is Shift right click and go ahead and do Smooth. Now, what that does is that creates a sphere for me, and out of this sphere I'll create a cylinder. Now I want to point something out. The way I was able to drag out a cube like this is I actually have a feature turned on called Interactive Creation. So Polygon Primitive, and I turned on Interactive Creation. And that'll allow you to do that. Otherwise, if you have it off and you just click on Create Polygon Cube, it'll just create a cube in the scene, which can be useful sometimes. Okay? So what I'm going to do is right click, go to vertex mode, and I'm holding Alt and left clicking, and I'm going to select all those verts on the top. And I'm going to shrink those. Same thing on these bottom ones, I'm going to condense those. Now I'm going to right click, go to edge mode, and double click this center edge. I want to delete that edge. So I'm going to Shift right click, delete edge. Go to my object mode, and now you can see we created a cylinder out of a cube, and then a cube out of a sphere that was made from a cube. Now what you're noticing here is there's some darkness sort of around those edges. The reason is the edge of this cube should be hardened. So I'm going to go to edge mode, select those edges there. So I right click to get that feature, went to edge mode, and I left clicked out here to drag more key. Now I want to deselect these edges in here. So I'm going to hold Control and deselect those center edges. I'm going to Shift right click, soften harden edge, and just harden that edge. Again here, Shift right click, soften harden edge, and harden the edges. So now you can see it looks a little bit better. Now what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and start to emulate that bed that we looked at earlier, that shape. So you can see here we have a bigger cylinder here, one inside and one at the base. So I'm going to go ahead and move that up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control D. Now that middle cylinder that's going to go down here, we don't necessarily need these faces on top or the faces on bottom. So I'm going to select the entire cylinder. Holding Shift, I'm going to select the inside. You can see I have the bottom and the top faces selected. I'm going to hit Delete. Now I'm going to just go to Object Mode, move it into place, bring it down, hit R, scale it. I'm going to right click, go to Vertex Mode, and just sort of bring those verts up a little bit. Again, I'm going to go to Object Mode, kind of bring that down a little bit. I'm going to hit Control D, bring this down, hit R, sort of scale that down a little bit. And there's my leg. I'm going to select all three, hold Shift, right click, and go down to Combine. That combined it into one object. Now whenever you do that, it moves your center pivot out here. We want the pivot to be at the center of our leg. So we're just going to go to Modify. I'm going to hold Control and Shift here and select Center Pivot so it adds it onto my taskbar. And I'm going to center the pivot. Let's go ahead and move it over here. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of move it down. Alright, so it kind of fits in there. What I'm going to do again is I'm going to hit Control D, just kind of move this out. I'm just making the legs. The next thing I want to do is create the two boxes that make up the mattress and the box that makes up the bed itself. So I'm going to jump back into Maya, go to Create Polygon Primitives Cube, and kind of ideally you want to use the interactive creation. I'm going to just go ahead and let this kind of cube slide. Okay, so let's go ahead and do something like this. I'm going to hit W, kind of move this into place. Again, I'm not terribly concerned with the scaling. We will get it to fit inside this. So there's the wood area, the wood frame. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control D again, move this up, hit R, and scale this in. I'm going to hit W, hit Control D, scale this up, and I'm going to form that pillow. And I'm just going to place this cube at where the pillow would go. Okay. I'm going to hit Control D again, hit R, and I'm just going to shape out that bedpost. This would be a good time to right click and go to vertex mode, select those bottom verts, hit W, kind of pull them down. And you can we can shift to our side view by holding spacebar, right clicking on the word Maya and going to side view, just so we can get a good idea of where the leg is in relation to everything else. Okay, let's go to perspective mode. I'm just going to double check that our bed post kind of reaches out. Let's right click, go to object mode, and select everything, with the exception of this cube here. I'm going to move that over this way. Alright, let's go ahead and hit R to scale this pillow out a little bit. Alright, let's look at what we got in comparison to our reference. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this way. And let's go ahead and sort of scale out our bed window here. Kind of take a look. And actually what I'm going to do is just save this image. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and then kind of line up both side by side. Okay, so as we look at this, we're missing a few things. We're missing the curvature of the bedpost, we're missing a softer pillow, and we're missing this blanket that kind of comes up this way. So let's start by making the blanket. I'm just going to hit Control D. I'm using the objects I find in the scene. I'm going to hit W. I'm just going to scale and sort of shape out this this sort of bed cloth. So something like this. You know, we're just kind of placing it somewhere in the middle here. I'm going to right click, go to face mode, and shift select these two faces. I'm going to go ahead and shift right click and go down to extrude face, kind of pull these out. Alright, I'm going to shift select both of these guys here. Shift right click, extrude face, and pull them both down at the same time. Do you see that? And it looks like it goes all the way down, a little bit out. You can see it kind of, it mirrors the other side, so you kind of pull these out just a little bit. I might right click, go to vertex mode. And again, I'm pretty comfortable with Maya at this point, so I'm going to hit 4 so you can see this. I'm just going to select these verts here, holding shift down, select these verts here, and just hit R, kind of scale them out a little bit. Alright, I'm going to hit 5 to go back into shaded mode. And that looks good for now. Alright, to make a softer pillar, I'm just going to shift right click and go to smooth. And that kind of gives me a pillow shape. I'm going to go ahead and hit R to scale this out. Vertices. Alright, I'm going to kind of flatten these verts out a little. Go to object mode. Just kind of play, you know, my own little creative freedom here with a pillow like this. We can also make it a double pillow. Now what I'm going to do at this point is highlight the entire bed, hit W, sort of move it into place. Now the bed that we model is smaller than sort of the bed in the sea. So a trick is we want to group all of these elements together, because if I go to scale them up, it's going to scale them separately. I'm just going to hit Control G, and that groups them. And I'm just going to sort of scale my bed out going this way, holding W here. Again, hitting R to kind of scale this up. I'm going to hit W, move this up just a little bit. And that looks pretty good, and it gets pretty contained in this folder. Okay. Let's go ahead and select this headboard here. And we're going to add a couple cuts going across to sort of give us a curve. So I'm going to shift right click, insert edge loop, and just add a couple of cuts here. I'm going to hit W, right click, go to vertex mode, and I'm going to shift these verts back just a little bit like this. Maybe pull them back just a little bit more. Again, you can see that I selected them all the way across. It gave me this pretty nice curvature. Like that. Alright. We might have to make this a little bit taller. So what I'm going to do is pull this up just a little bit. Just kind of trying to compare it with the image. Go to vertex mode. Let's go ahead and hide everything by clicking here. Just pull these verts down to the ground. Now, what we want to do is we want to sort of create this little box design back here. So what we're going to do is go to face mode and just select these two faces here and these two faces here. And I'm going to shift right click, extrude faces, extrude them in a little bit like this. I'm just sort of creating a little bit of a valley. Shift right click, extrude face, something like this. What you'll notice is it updates on the back at the same time. Now what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go to Edge here. I'm going to right click, Edge Ring Utilities to Edge Ring. You can see it selected that entire ring. I'm going to select this back edge here and hit G to redo that action. You can see it made a ring around. I'm going to shift right click, control right click, two faces, two faces. I'm going to hit the delete key. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is go to edge mode, double click this edge, shift right click, double click this edge. I'm going to hold shift, right click, go down to the bridge tool. And what the bridge tool does is it connects any adjoining edges. And I don't want any divisions, so I'm going to hit apply. You can see it went ahead and it created everything. Now, it's a little off in this respect, so in cases like this, you got to select edge to edge and hit apply. And I'm going to hit G here. And I'm hitting G here, and it's just sort of bridging all of those edges together. Okay, I'm just kind of going through again, selecting each one of these edges. There we go. And there it is. Alright, so now we've got this all going on. I can go ahead and delete this proxy box. And I can still tweak this a little bit more. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and sort of shift right click, combine all these pieces together. So it's one object. I'm going to hit W. You can see the pivot is here. I want to kind of line up the corner of my bed to that pivot. I'm going to hold D and V. I'm going to snap it to the vert. And then I'm just going to hold X. I'm going to snap my bed to that corner. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and modify freeze transformation to clean it out. Let's go ahead and take a look at this from the front for a second. I'm sure this is sort of uniform. We might have to clean this up a little bit. For example, the feet aren't completely on the ground. So let's double click this. Let's bring this down here. Let's kind of move it over a little bit. We're just going to shape the bed a little bit better. Let's pull this down. Let's move this over. I'm going to scale this out widthwise a little bit better so it lines up. Same thing with this guy and this. I'm just double clicking them so that it selects all of the faces. Alright. Let's go ahead and hit Control S. Now I'm going to hit Continue. Let's take a look at what happens inside of Unity. You can see here it updated the bed with our new bed. And now that we have this, we can go ahead and hit play and take a look at the scaling of our bed. And it looks pretty good. Now the fact that we can walk through it, we're going to go ahead and fix that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to Game Object, create other cube, and I'm going to place it in the complete size of my bed. So I'm going to hit R, and then this way. And again, I'm just making at this point something called a collision box. And inside of cube here, I'm going to name this bed underscore COL for collision. And then I want to take off mesh renderer. So now when I press play and I try to walk into my box, I cannot. Or into my bed, I cannot. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and hit Control S on this. In the next video, we're going to take a look at how we texture and unwrap our bed.